All right, welcome everybody to another live online learning webinar. We are back today with Mr. Andy Hagerman, looking at Pro Tools Ultimate, specifically using the preview and capture automation features. Before we jump into the webinar, I'm going to go over a couple of points with all of you. Great. So first of all, this webinar is being recorded. If you're in the Zoom call with us, you will notice that your audio is muted. However, you are able to ask questions using the Q&A function down at the bottom of the screen. You're also able to ask questions in the comment sections on any streaming platform that you're watching this on. I will be going through those comments and taking questions and relaying them to Andy. So please leave us your best questions. All of our recorded sessions will be posted to our website at avid.com. And again, if you're in the Zoom call with us, you are also able to raise your hand so we know you're there. So today with us, as mentioned, we have Andy Hagerman. Andy is an Avid Master Instructor and an Audio Curriculum Manager with us. So Andy, whenever you're ready, you're welcome to take it away.
All right, let me grab my screen here. All right. Awesome. Well, yeah, my name's Andy Hagerman. I'm the Audio Curriculum Manager. And today we're going to talk a little bit about two features in Pro Tools Ultimate, preview and capture, and they're kind of related. And this kind of stems from a previous webinar that we did on automation features. And it was a really good question that came from the audience. And I figured it deserved its own topic. So here's what we're going to be talking about. We're going to talk about using preview mode. And it's one of those tools that if you try to dig into it and just mess around, you probably aren't going to get the results that you want. But if you do the steps in the right order, it's going to do what you want. And then we're going to talk about how to punch what you've previewed. And then we're going to finally talk about using capture. So let's start off with preview. Now, in the automation button, in an automation window, you're going to see at the very bottom a preview button. It's right down here where the arrow is indicating. And let's take a look at this in the context of Pro Tools. So right here, I've got a little song here. I'll play for you a little bit of it. It's Tchaikovsky. And I've got this string sub, and this string sub here is a folder track, a routing folder track. And the cellist is going to come in here. And that's another routing folder track. And then you're going to hear the winds will come in here. So we've got three different stems, and I'm intentionally making this as simple as possible in this case, because to be honest, preview and capture can get quite complex, but I want to show these features in a very simple kind of way. So we're going to just limit ourselves to these three stems. And you'll see over here, I've also got the automation window here. And right down here is the preview button. Now, what is preview meant to do? Preview is meant to give you an easy way of non-destructively being able to compare two different settings, basically to do an A/B comparison. And this is usually something that you'll do. Sometimes you'll do it by yourself in the creative phase. Sometimes you'll do it if there's a producer behind you and they want to hear two different ways before committing to one or the other. Okay, so we've got this mix over here, and you'll see here that on my cellist I've got some effects and I've got an EQ setting over here. So just kind of keep that all in mind. Now, here's the workflow that you're going to want to do. The first thing you're going to do, if you think you're going to want to use preview mode, is to turn preview mode on, and click that right there, and you're going to see it's going to turn green. The second thing is going to be to take the tracks that you want to write in and turn them into one of the writing modes. It can be auto write, auto latch, auto touch. I'm going to keep it in auto latch. It's the one that I generally am going to use. Now, I'm going to make some changes. They're not necessarily the most artistic ones, but these are going to be the changes, let's say, that I want to compare between, that I want to be able to switch between the mix that I have right now and another mix that I can preview between. So let's take a look and see what happens. I'm going to go ahead and start playback. Now, watch these automation enable buttons. It's going to tell a story. I'm going to change this. And as soon as I change a setting, you'll see that the auto latch button on that track turns into red and green, which is probably a color you haven't seen before. Now that means that there's automation in the buffer. You're also seeing that the preview button is now green. It means there's automation in the preview buffer. I'm gonna choose this. I'm gonna bring this down, and just for fun, I'm gonna change my EQ setting. I'll do something like this. Now, you can see right here, I've got a whole bunch of changes that I've made, and it's all in my preview buffer. Now, here's where people make the first mistake. They'll click the preview button wanting to switch between the two. That's not how you do it. The way you change between the A and the B is to hold the command key on a Mac or the control key on a Windows machine, and it changes between the two. So now if I go here, you can see all the different changes that I've made are switching between the two. So I can take a listen to this, see how this sounds. So this is my previewed. I could take a look at the original mix, and what I'm doing is I'm holding down the command key, I click on the preview button, and it goes, you can see a little bit of gray there, but it's the previous mix. Now, here's the question. So let's say that you like what you've changed. So in other words, your preview, this is what you want to use. At that point, you're going to punch your preview, okay? And the way that you punch your preview, I'm going to go ahead and stop this right now. So just to review, preview is going to take everything that's in your buffer, in the preview buffer, and I can switch between two different settings. And you can see here, it's changing between the different levels. I could change my sends. I could change all of this right now. Whenever preview is on, and this is the thing to be careful of, and let's go into the topics right now. First point, you must be in an automation writing mode. So before you start this, you're going to need to be in auto write, auto latch, or auto touch. Now, be aware of the Christmas colors. When you are seeing any automation enable button with this red and green, you are not writing automation. The automation, the changes that you're making have not been written. They are living in the preview buffer. They have not been committed. And this is the mistake a lot of people make, is they'll turn preview on, they'll do the best mix of their life, and then they'll save it, and they realize that nothing has been written. Everything was just in the preview buffer. So be very careful. If you've got those Christmas colors, just know what you're doing and what you're not doing. Now, to suspend preview mode, you don't want to just click the preview button. That will take you out of preview mode. To change between preview and the original, to toggle between those two, hold down Command on a Mac or Control on a Windows machine. And anything you touch, anything that you change will be put into this preview buffer while your preview mode is on. Everything you touch. So any of the changes you make to your plugins, any of the changes that you make to your sends, all that stuff is now going to be in the preview buffer. And if you like it, you can punch it and commit it. If you don't like it, just take yourself out of preview and you've got what you had before. So either way, you're covered. Now, let's say, just for the sake of argument, that you like what you've changed. In other words, what's in the preview buffer is what you want to keep. At that point, you want to punch it. So let's take a look at punch a little bit. And the way you're going to punch it is with this little button down here. So if you take a look over here, right by the preview button, there's a down arrow, and that down arrow turns blue as soon as there's any data in the preview buffer. And as soon as you've made any changes, you can punch what you've changed. Now, how is that punch going to be made is, I think, something that the right tools will be able to help you do the way that you want to do. So let's go here. I'm going to annotate this real quick. All right. So if you go to manual write, so your manual write are the top ones. Manual write, when you click one of these buttons, it will start writing at the point that you click. Okay, at the time that you click. When you go to write on stop, this bottom box, that will start. It will apply your changes when you hit the stop key. Now, those are important distinctions, but not tremendously important when you're using preview mode. In preview mode, both of these modes tend to work roughly the same, but these buttons, these two groups of 5 buttons, are worth knowing about. If you want to write and punch your changes back to the beginning of your timeline or back to the beginning of the selection, you'll click either right on manual write or right on stop. You'll click this this left looking arrow, and that will write to the beginning of a selection or to the beginning of your timeline if you don't have a selection. All right. If you want to write to entire selection, then you'll click this button. Now, if you don't have a selection made, it will write to your entire timeline. If you have a selection made, then it will write to the beginning to the end of the selection. If you want to write from the time that you click the button to the end of the selection, you'll choose one of these guys. Okay. Now, these bottom two are a little bit, I think they're not as intuitive as the top three. The left arrow pointing to a dot will write back to the point that you punched in. In other words, it writes back to the point where you hit the punch button. The right-facing arrow with a dot will write to the next automation breakpoint. All right, so let's go back and let's take a look at a couple of scenarios. So now I'm in Pro Tools. Oops, let me take this annotation out of here. There we go. All right, so let's say that I am now, let me turn off my annotation here. There we go. All right, excuse me. So I've got preview. I'm looking at my previewed settings. So these are my previewed settings. All right, and I want to punch them. So I'm going to go ahead and start playing back at this point. Now, I am going to hit right on stop, and I'm going to choose right to all selection. So I'm going to click this, and it's all ready to go. Now, as soon as I hit the down arrow, it's going to punch what's in the preview buffer and start to write. Boom. And now those are my new settings, and it's writing from the point that I punched in. Now, as soon as I hit stop, boom, it's now written that to the beginning and to the end of my selection. Okay. And now I'm out of preview mode. So that's now done. And what was in the preview is now my committed mix. Now let's go ahead and try that again. I'm going to undo what I just did, and I'm going to do another preview. So I'm going to put myself into preview mode again. And I'm going to bring this way down just as an example. Now you can see over here on my Chillest, I've got an automation dot right here. So I'm going to click this button, which will write to the next automation breakpoint. I'm going to punch. And then when I hit stop, it writes from where I punched in to the next automation breakpoint. So that's this one right here. And I'll turn that off. So those are the different ways to punch. Again, you can punch from where you can punch your preview from where you click the button back to the beginning of a selection, to the end of the selection, to the entire selection. So if you want to create a scene or a static mix for a certain selected area, you can write back to the point where you originally wrote, which is not necessarily the most useful tool in this particular workflow, or you can write to the next automation breakpoint, which is useful. In typical cases, in my own personal experience, I usually am going to write to the entire selection if I want to kind of do a static mix of a scene or of a musical phrase, or sometimes I'll use this one that writes to the next automation breakpoint. And I usually, this is just me, I'll usually use right on stop so that those changes are committed when I hit the stop and I can see easily what's going on. All right, so those two, let's go back here, make sure I'm not skipping anything. The next thing is capture. Now, capture can be used anytime, and it's often used with preview, but not always, right? So I'm going to go back and let's undo what I just did. Great, so we're back to roughly what we had before. I'll take this off. You'll see here, I'm going to put myself into preview, and you'll notice here that as soon as I make any changes, not only has something been put into my preview buffer, but that what is in the preview buffer can be captured. So let's say I like these changes, but not for this section. Okay, so what I'm going to do over here is I'm going to capture what's in the preview buffer. And then I'll go down here and I'll take myself out of preview. And then I will punch my preview. And what's happening is it's punched what was in the preview buffer. In other words, it captured. And you can use this, like I said, you can use this with capture, or you can use it in a completely different scenario. You can use it on its own. So let's go over here, and I'm not going to be in preview mode this time. Now I'm just going to capture. And let's say here, I'm going to put myself in latch, and let's start playing over here. And you're not hearing anything because there's nothing here to hear. So I'm going to bring this down. I'm going to bring this up, and I'm going to bring this down. This is fantastic. Not only is it a great mix for here, but it's a great mix for another place in my section. So I'm going to capture what I'm writing. So capture all the stuff that's in my right buffer. I'm going to hit stop. And I'm going to make a little selected area. I'll make that selected area right here. I am going to punch it. And I'm going to, at this point, I'll make it a little bit longer, just to make it a little bit easier. I'm going to go ahead and hit play. I'm going to punch what I previewed, and you can see these levels are exactly the same as what we had before. And I'm going to write on stop to the entire selected area. Boom, Bob's your uncle. And I've just now written what was in the capture buffer. And again, you can use capture with preview. You can use capture on its own. Now, let's go into a couple other things. Yeah, let's see. Where's my other menu? There it is. Right now, I've got some automation going. I'm going to do something a little bit weird. I'm going to capture something that isn't in the automation buffer. Before, what was happening is everything that I was capturing is something that I had moved. In other words, something that was either in the preview buffer or something that was in the automation buffer. Now, none of this automation that's happening, this is automation that's already been written. It's not in any buffer at all, but I still can capture it if you know the shortcut. And that shortcut is option, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play my track from here, and I'm going to let it go. And let's go a little bit further up here. There we go. Now I'm going to hold down option, and I'm just going to click it over here, and boom. And I've just now captured something. Now I clicked it right around here, and I can punch that capture anytime I want to. So if I'm going to punch it, I'm going to go boom. And now it's punching what I captured. I captured at that point, and I could write that capture any way that I want, right? I can write that capture to the entire selection. I can write it back to the beginning, whatever at the end. The punches are exactly the same as I have here. Now, let's get even deeper. At this point, let's do it one more time. And you'll notice that if I hold down option and I capture, and then I punch what I've captured, it's only going to punch on the tracks that are in an automation write mode. In other words, it's only punching on the 3 tracks that are currently in auto latch. But wait, there's more. I'm going to go back here. And again, I'm holding down option and capture. And now I'm going to go over here. I'm going to start playback. And I want to punch to all the tracks, even the tracks that aren't in latch mode. And I'm going to hold down the option key and hit option punch. And what it's going to do is it's going to change all the tracks into auto latch mode and start writing it. All right. Now let's go and do a little bit of review real quick. All right. So if you want to capture everything, normally, if you just hit the capture button with no modifier key, it will capture what's in the automation buffer or in the preview buffer, depending upon how you're working. If you want to capture everything, even if automation isn't writing, if you want to take a snapshot of everything, then hold the option key and it will capture everything that's happening in your automation, even if you're not actively changing a parameter, even if that data is not in the automation buffer. If you want to, while you're punching, if you want to change all your tracks to auto latch and punch on all your tracks, then you hold the option key or the alt key while you hit the punch button, that little down arrow. If you, and this is what I haven't shown you, but it makes sense, right? If you want to change all selected tracks, not all tracks, but all selected tracks to auto latch when punching, hold down shift and option and click that down punch arrow. And these shortcuts, the option and shift option, work with both of these punch arrows. So punching preview or punching your capture, excuse me. Punching your preview or punching your capture, holding down Option or Shift Option will change all your tracks or all your selected tracks to auto touch, and it will start writing on those. So it's a one-stop shop, allowing you to quickly change your automation, start writing stuff. Now, that's a real whirlwind tour of these two features. And I know we've got time to spare on this. So Lainey, that's, like I said, that was a good question. I wanted to give a little bit more time to those two features. And that's basically the whirlwind tour of how to use preview mode and capture, and how to punch either preview or punch your capture. Lainey, it's question time.
Yes, let's see. So I had someone ask on Facebook if you could go over the right to selection bug, which I guess is when you make a selection after transport, then right to selection, the automation will write the entire timeline. Do you have any insight into that?
Read that to me again. I haven't experienced that, but read it to me again. I just want to make sure I understand it.
He says that there's a right to selection bug, and
Okay.
that bug is when you make a selection after starting transport, then right to selection, the automation will write to the entire timeline.
You know what? That doesn't surprise me. Let me see if that still happens. By the way, whoever asks that question, it's just not something that has hit me. So let's see if that will work. So let me go ahead here and see if I can't reproduce that bug for you. I'm a professional at reproducing bugs. So let me go ahead here and we'll start. I'll change things here, and change things here. Great. Now I'll make a selection after the fact, which I think is what he's asking. And then I'm going to do a right to selection on stop. Boom. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. I'm not sure if you can call that a bug or if that's just the way the feature will work. But that's not surprising that that's happening. So I guess the message there is to make your selection first before using manual write or write on stop. If not, it uses basically the selection that was existing when you started to add that data into the buffer.
Very nice. Let's see if I have any other questions. I'm not seeing anything at the moment.
Wow. Lainey, do you have any questions?
I don't.
Oh, wow.
Let's see. Yeah, I think that's it for now. So I'm gonna just share my screen quickly. Okay, so if you do end up having questions and I missed them, or you thought about them later, you're welcome to send us an email at liveonlinelearning@avid.com. I will make sure that those questions either get to Andy or someone else who can answer them for you. We'd also love to hear what you would like to see from us next. So if you want to recommend some sessions or specific topics that you want to see covered, please send us an email. We'd love to hear from you. And then I'm just going to quickly go over the remaining sessions for this week. So tomorrow we are looking at Maestro News and Maestro Live, specifically looking at databases. And then Thursday, we're looking at Media Composer, import versus link. And then next Tuesday, so a week from today, we're looking at Media Composer with a very long title, customizing the interface settings, mapping the keyboard, and exporting user settings. So we'd love to have you drop by. But with that, thank you all so much for joining us. We appreciate you stopping by. And Andy, thank you so much for leading the webinar, and we will hopefully have you back on soon.
Yeah, great.
All right, we'll see you all soon.